speaking of GB Energy, right? Speaking of GB Energy chat. So you know, and I know that on this channel, we've been talking about the GB Energy plan for a long time. We have all seen the GB Energy platform essentially being misrepresented online all of the time by Labour, by the journalists who talk about it, and we've been very critical because we've looked at the actual campaign documents and we know what it's like. I know the economic theory behind this because it's based loosely off of stuff in Mission Economy by Mariana Mazzucato when she used to advise the party somewhat. And so they kind of read the blurb, got some ideas and then ran with it. So it's essentially, people keep talking about GB Energy as if it is an energy company. It's even in a lot of the campaign material, the face forward campaign material rather than the policy detail, as being a publicly owned energy company. You've seen people say this on TV, in interviews, in published things on like TikTok and YouTube, or the Labour adverts and stuff. They've all talked about GB Energy as if it's a publicly owned energy company. Again, as if it's like ADF, as if it's like Shell or whatever. They think that it's like one of these, either a supplier or a generator or something that involves like the grid or whatever. But we all know that it's none of these things. It's not any of these things. What it is it is a investment management thing. So what it is it's going to have share equity in a bunch of other firms that do capital investment from the private sector as a de-risking factor. So the government will give a 25%, I think it's £1 for every £3 is going to be public money in this. They will give that as subsidy to these private companies, these startups for green energy generation, for example. And then the government, in response, will get 25% share ownership. So no direction of the company, no amount of control over what happens in it as a minority shareholder. They'll just get some amount of dividend payouts, for example, or might be able to have some say in how the money gets spent because it's being pumped up by the government. So that's what it is. It's a slush fund. It's a slush fund, but at least it's got some share equity rather than just subsidy being given to companies for free, like the Tories did with Tata Steel, for example. But crucially, what this is not specifically is a company that produces any energy or sells any energy. It just manages the investments. And Jonathan Reynolds specifically said this. Jonathan Reynolds said on Laura Kay and in a bunch of pieces of information that he put out as far as press releases, is to manage the investments to unlock certain markets. Now that is an energy company, chat. That is false advertising. And they've been calling it an energy company even though it clearly is not an energy company. That's not what it is. So for example, here is Anas Sarwar calling a publicly owned energy generation company.
GB Energy, a publicly owned energy generation company that's a key part
which it not.
of our wider green.
That's not what it is. It clearly is not a publicly owned energy generation company. And here is Keir Starmer admitting that it's not actually an energy company, it's an investment vehicle, it's a slush fund. So we finally have an admission that this is all lies. Like, it was to try and market during the pre-election period where white lies you can get away with. They marketed it to the public as being a publicly owned energy company. They're now admitting that that was a lie. Like, not even just like a complete lie. It's not a company, it's an investment management project. That's all it is. And here's the proof.
Can I just clarify, this funding that you would give, who would actually be in ownership then of that infrastructure that you're funding in order for GB Energy to actually generate its own energy? Would this be via local authorities? You talked about private sector involvement too, but I'm just trying to clarify the extent to which it would actually be generating its own electricity, and that would all be publicly owned.
Well, no, it'd be an investment vehicle, so not an energy company. So it's an investment vehicle in the energy of the future. The money...
Literally, those words came out of his mouth. It's not an energy company. Yet all of the policy documentation says what he's saying, that it's an investment vehicle. Why were they not calling it investment vehicle in their public-facing advertising? In the interviews that they've been doing on Sky News before the election period, calling it specifically a public energy company. We saw what Anas Sarwar said up there. Ed Miliband said it in the little TikTok that he did, like 60 seconds, said about GB Energy, our publicly owned energy company. It's not that. It's not that. And there's blatant admission. Keir Starmer explicitly said it's not an energy company. He's lying. He's lying again. Imagine, if you will, chat. Imagine, if you will, Keir Starmer lying about something. You know how we keep saying he lied to his own party? What makes you think he won't lie to you? Here's the proof. A deliberate and direct lie to the public about the nature of GB Energy, which we've known for over a year. We've been covering this for a whole year. 12 whole last months, chat. We have been covering the fact that GB Energy is just an investment slush fund and not indeed a public energy company that's either not going to generate its own or supply any energy at all. It's not going to do any of these things. It's an investment vehicle. We've been clear about this. So, of course, first of all, it's a lie. Second of all, why has there been no journalistic scrutiny at all of this obvious and clear lie to the public for any time whilst this has been clear policy until now? Why has it taken until now for Radio Scotland to prize this fact out of Labour when they could have spent 5 minutes flicking through the policy documentation to find out that it clearly was a lie? They could have listened to Jonathan Reynolds when he said explicitly that it was an investment vehicle, when everybody else was calling it a publicly owned energy company. Like, what's up with our journalism? Where's the scrutiny? Why does it have to go through the election cycle for us to be able to probe into something that random nobodies on YouTube and Twitch can pull apart by reading policy documentation from first principles? What's going on here? Why is this lie been allowed to go unchallenged for so long? This is a tweet that Keir Starmer has made. This is back from 2023, saying, with GB Energy, a publicly owned energy company, which we know is now a lie. Literally a explicit and direct lie. Just, again, at least now we know the truth, right? Because I don't necessarily think that it's a terrible policy. It's better than PFI. It's better than subsidy. It's not what I wanted. It's not good enough. I think there are problems in wondering how you're going to deliver it. There's an interview with an energy generation expert on Downstream on Novara on Sunday who points out in a clip that's been posted by Novara on TikTok that actually clean energy generation isn't a high margin industry. Like, you really do have to throw money at private companies to get them to do the investment because they don't think they're going to get much of an ROI. Like, it probably will reduce bills. I think people seem to not understand the mechanism that it reduces bills by, which is by increasing the supply-demand curve switches down so that you'd be able to make energy cheaper. And energy that comes from renewables is cheaper than from fossil fuels, especially given what's happening in geopolitical terms right now. That's fine, but don't try and lie to me that you're creating a public energy company when you're not. Again, trying to lie, again, probably to the membership specifically, trying to pretend they have this kind of public ownership, collective ownership plan. Remember when people like Phil will say, well, actually, Starmer hasn't broken this collective ownership pledge because they have GB Energy, this publicly owned energy company. It's not a publicly owned energy company. It's a slush fund for private businesses to de-risk capital. Again, I understand the logic behind the policy. I'm not going to throw out everything about the policy with the bathwater, for example. But what I will do is call you out when you fucking lie. And calling it a publicly owned energy company is a lie. A complete lie. And it's hoodwinked the entire nation and all of our journalists and everybody in the Labour Party, apparently. And it's only a handful of eagle-eyed YouTube idiots like me who've managed to spot it up until this point. But bear shit in woods, fish gonna swim, Keir Starmer gonna lie. What's new?